Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Introduction to Business Online, Business 100. We've been working on our reports, and in the second half of our term here, we have a couple of homeworks due. So, homework 3 right here, and homework 4 right here. And what you'll notice, this is our course homepage, always a good place to check in. I've got some videos here. We did a unit on marketing, and hopefully you've completed your financial report. And then I've got a video for homework number 3 and a video for homework number 4. What I want to focus on now is some information that you'll need for report number 3, and that is for organizational charts. And this is just a template of what an organizational chart looks like. I'm going to come back to this in just a second. Let's go through a couple of slides here first. So an organizational chart shows organizational structure. Now, why is this important? Well, if you think back to what we've been doing, we've started a business, you've got a business idea, you've created a mission statement, you've developed a product or service, and now in the second half of the term, we're starting to think about, so first of all, who are your customers? Who are you making your product for? And also, how are you going to make that product and how are you going to get it to your product? So we're going to start talking about things like having a supply and distribution chain. In one of your homeworks, you'll be talking about actually making things, operations. Well, in order to do that, you have to have people doing the work. And it's always a good idea if those people are organized, it's more efficient. And so you want to create an organizational structure. Now, a lot of times when companies first start, if they're super small, it might just be you, the business owner. And that's okay. You might not have much of an organizational structure. But as you grow, remember our product life cycle, when you hit that growth phase and there's high demand, it's really important to have some organization in place. It's going to help you make things and deliver things to your customers that much more efficiently. And efficiency, remember, can lead to lowered costs, especially when we do economies of scale. And so for those reasons, and I think this is going to be a question on an upcoming quiz, why do you need an organizational chart? Well, it leads to efficiency, it leads to better operations, it can lead to making a better transition to economies of scale where you end up making more at lower costs to your organization. It also helps people to know, and that's what I'm showing you on this slide here, who do you report to? So we tend to organize people into groups according to what they're doing. We make sure that they know who they report to, the chain of command. And so an organizational chart's really just a diagram of your organizational structure. Now, that's different than writing a job description. So when we break things down into very specific functions with specific tasks and skills, then we're starting to write the actual job description. That's important too, but you don't really want to write the job description until you know where people fit within the organization. So let's go back to the picture that I showed you. So you will eventually write an organizational chart for your company. You can sketch it by hand. You can use in Word, there's a way of creating little flowcharts. If you wanna do that, that's fine too. But this is pretty basic. So you'll notice that it's really common over here. You have somebody who's in charge, the president, and then we might break things down by department or function. So I have a sales division, I have production, that's operations, who's making this stuff, and then I have marketing. You might also have finance, you might also have IT tech, so you can build out as many departments or divisions as you need. Now, if you're international, or even if you're national, you might have different regions. So you might have, sometimes you have a headquarters where you have what's called your C-suite, your chief executive officer, your operations officer, and your financial officer. You might have those in your headquarters. You might have human resources management and IT tech and marketing all at your headquarters. But then you might have sales and operations in different regions. So you might have sales, a West Coast sales division and an East Coast sales division, and same thing with operations. You might have West Coast operations, East Coast operations, and then as you get international, you might have North American sales, North American operations, and on and on and on it goes. So don't create an organizational chart that's bigger than what you need. If you're really small, keep it very lean, keep it very simple. You'll notice that under each division, we've got managers and departments, and they can have their own staff. Now, sometimes if you have, I'll show you, this is a much smaller version. If you have a restaurant, you might have a couple of owners. You might have a manager for the front of the house, and then you might have a manager for the kitchen, right? The chef and what happens in the back of the house. So you can divide things up. You can make it as large or as small as it needs to be. And I think in the report, I've asked you to do what are you going to look like at startup, and then what are you going to look like as you grow. So again, don't make it bigger or more complicated than it needs to be. This one has a slightly different flow chart. You can see here's the C-suite. Now sometimes you have the C-suite just means the chief executive, chief financial, and chief operations. And it's called C because chief, the C right there, CEO, CFO, COO. Sometimes there will be, in a public company, we talked about a corporate legal structure, there will be a board of directors. Technically, the C-suite reports to the board of directors because the board of directors actually represents the shareholders. Remember, that was a question on one of your previous quizzes. The shareholders or the owners of the company actually get to dictate what happens. Usually, they're represented by the board. Usually, the C-suite manages the vision of the company. So let me go back here. One of the reasons we have this structure and we break things down according to departments, let me go to another slide here, is because we have a vision for the company and we want to make sure that the vision is getting carried out. And so I can break things down based on function and department. This is what I just showed you, marketing, human resources, and the military. We've got things that are on the land, things that are in the water, things that are in the air, right? So we're grouping things according to similar job type of units. I showed you that you can base things geographically based on region. Sometimes you can base things on the type of business you're doing. So in banking, I might break it down into what I'm doing for customers that are interested in things like home loans and car loans, or the business side of things where I'm making business loans. And then if you think about a business like Home Depot has local retail. I can go in and I can buy a hammer and nails, but they've also got contractors, so people that are doing commercial contracting. All right? So when you think about your organizational chart, think about how you want to set up your business. Now, I'm going to show you one more thing. I just want to show you one more slide here, or a couple more slides here. Organizational charts and thinking about the structure of your organization really goes hand in hand with having employees, people who are working for you. And so this is a different aspect of management. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in a brief video talking about management and motivation, but I do want to tell you that there are a couple of chapters in your textbook that will go into this in much more detail. And if you're interested in management, this is something for you to study more carefully. Once you start hiring employees, you might want to take a course in human resources management. And you also might want to start thinking about employee motivation. It's sort of a science unto itself. The question is, how do you motivate people to do work? And motivation can be broken out into something that's very primary. So I need to go to work because I need to put a roof over my head. I need to put food on the table. Usually along the way, we develop what's called our secondary work ethic. What kind of an employee am I going to be? And there are a lot of theories about this. And then, one of the questions that we ask is, are you intrinsically motivated? Do I get my reward just because I want to show up every day and do a good job? Or do I get my reward because it comes by meeting some external or extrinsic goal? I get paid, I get promoted, I get recognition. So these are different ways about thinking about employee motivation. Again, I'm not going to spend in the depth of this brief video. I can't spend a whole lot of time going into the weeds on motivation, but I just want to make the point that once you start hiring people, it becomes important to understand things like human resources management and employee motivation, because obviously that's linked. For our purposes right now and for the report that we're going to do, we really want to focus on the skeleton and the backbone of organizational structure and creating an organizational chart. So look at some examples in the book. You can go online and find some examples. And in the report, I'll be asking you to create your basic organizational chart as you start up and as you grow.